Welcome, everybody. We are having another wonderful author back. She's, again, a repeat author. I love it when people come back to read to me again. Today, Kathleen Kaska, all the way from Texas. Thank you for coming back, Kathleen.
Well, actually, I'm in Washington State right now.
Did you move, or is this just vacation?
Well, I'm living here most of the time, but I'm in Texas a lot. I'm from Texas, so I return a lot in the wintertime. I have family there, and it's kind of dreary here in Washington. So I'm kind of in both places.
Okay, awesome. So tell us, the last time you were on the program, you read from your mystery novel, Mystery at the Menger.
Right.
And then this one is now the sixth in that series. This is Mystery at the Pontchartrain, right?
Right. This one is the sixth in the series. It's at the Pontchartrain Hotel in New Orleans. And the fifth one kind of leads into this one. In the fifth series, which I read on your podcast about a year ago, part of Sydney's investigation takes her to New Orleans. And so in doing the research, I was just like so fascinated with the city that I decided that one mention wasn't enough. So I picked a hotel out in New Orleans, and I went back and did the research, and this is number 6. All my books are set in different historic hotels. And these are hotels that were opened, of course, in the 1950s when my books take place, but they're also still open today. So
what was the most surprising thing that you discovered at the Pontchartrain Hotel that really drew you in to write this story? What was the most surprising aspect of it?
I discovered that Tennessee Williams was staying there when he wrote his play Streetcar Named Desire.
Very cool.
And so, of course, I put that into the book as well. But yeah, that was kind of a fun bit of trivia that I found out. And so as a result, I read a biography of Tennessee Williams, and he spent a lot of time there. And so that was a surprise. And I had to put it in the book.
That's a really neat, energetic connection when you find that another writer has been in the same space where you're writing, or the same space that you're writing about. I love going to, here in Michigan, we have a place called Greenfield Village, which Henry Ford collected all these historic homes and buildings and put them there. And Edgar Allan Poe's cottage is there. And it's so neat just to walk through and be in that same environment. It's very cool. So tell us a little bit more about this book. And then when you're ready, please take the microphone and read aloud.
Okay. Murder at the Pontchartrain takes place at the Pontchartrain Hotel in the early 1950s. My protagonist is a young woman trying to make it in a man's world as a private detective. She has a partner, a business partner, boyfriend, that they're working together now, and they came to New Orleans to elope. And when they got to the hotel, they decided to go see this friend of Sydney's. He lives there now, and she met him in the third book. His name is Rip. He was a bouncer, and now he has his own agency in New Orleans. So because there was a 24-hour waiting period on a marriage license, Sydney and Dixon decided to go look up Rip and see how he was doing. When they get to his office, they find out that he's missing, as well as his secretary girlfriend. They're both missing. They go back to the hotel, and then when they get back, there's a dead body murdered in their room. And Dixon, Sydney's fiance partner, is arrested for the murder. Right. So she's got to prove his innocence.
Awesome. And will you be reading from the first chapter of the book?
No,
or are you jumping into the middle?
I'm jumping in the middle.
Okay.
This takes place in the swamp outside of Louisiana. And Sydney has been captured by two bad guys, and they take her to the swamp with the plan to kill her. So she wakes up after being chloroformed. And so this is the chapter I'm going to read.
Excellent.
I woke to complete darkness, the kind that tells you you're in big trouble. Darkness where nothing else exists. Darkness that smells of doom. Darkness that told me I'd screwed up again. My mind cleared a bit. Two unpleasant realizations hit. I was soaking wet and gasping for air. Drowning, not again. I'd almost drowned on the last case, and here I am again. Except this time I was bound and wrapped in a sack, probably the same kind Levine Rose was wrapped in. Panic began to set in. Then a glimmer of hope. I was not in the river. I was lying on the ground, and I heard thunder. Rain pelted down. She's coming to, someone said. I told you to bash her head in. You couldn't kill a fly with a brick. I recognized Zimmer's voice. I'll take care of it. She'll be dead in no time. I didn't want to do it before we put her in the trunk. That way, we wouldn't have to clean up any blood. Why don't you go sit in the car? I'm almost finished. That hole has to be deeper. What if someone comes along and sees it? Or what if a coyote digs it up? Who's going to come along here? The big bad wolf? Besides, if I dig it much deeper, water will seep in. The ground in the cypress swamp is like a sponge. That's why you should have dumped her in the river like the other one. Let the alligators take care of her. The other one was pulled from the river, bugger. I want to make sure this one never surfaces. Stop talking and do as I say. I want to see this hole covered up when you're done. Understand? I had to do something quick. There was no way I'd stand for being buried alive. The only problem was that I couldn't move. I heard Benny sloshing away and figured I had 2 minutes at the most. Although I was tied up, I wasn't gagged. Bugger, I whispered. Can you hear me? What the hell? I heard the shovel drop. Mama, is that you? This wasn't my fault. You know I'd never kill anyone. Mama, who was Burger talking to? Was there a woman with him? Mama, please help me. I know I was a big disappointment to you. I know you're in a good place. Give me another chance. Give me a sign from the other side, Mama. The guy no longer sounded sure of himself over what he was about to do. His voice began to quiver. Was this guy speaking to his dead mother? Mama, please talk to me, Bugger sobbed. With a slight Louisiana twang to my voice, I whispered, Bugger, this is your mother. A silence followed. Had Bugger passed out? Or was he frozen in fear from hearing his dead mother speak? Bugger, I said again. Mama, you're here? You don't have a lot of time, so listen closely. Yes, ma'am. Hide the woman behind the cypress trees. Then fill in the hole. Hurry. Bugger took hold of the sack and tossed me over his shoulder. He started moving through the brush, evident by several tree branches slapping me. But at least he was following my or his mother's directions. Then he dropped me on the ground and threw some twigs on top. I heard him walking away. Bugger, go back and untie the sack. Again, Bugger did what he was told. I heard him scurrying back and started shoveling. "Thank you, Mama," I heard Berger say. "Berger," Vinny yelled. "Who in the hell are you talking to?" "No one, Vinny. I was just saying a prayer over the body. I'm almost done here." "Stupid cuss. Did you bash her head in?" "Several times with a shovel. She's good and dead." I waited till I was sure they were gone. I managed to set up. Dizziness from the chloroform wafted over me. I took a few deep breaths and wriggled out of the sack. Rain splattered on my face, a welcome feeling after being stuffed in suffocating burlap. Luckily, my captors hadn't bothered to search me. I felt my gun nestled under my left arm. My hands and feet were tied, but I was alive and as safe as I could be for the moment. My head cleared. I looked around. The swamp seemed alive and dead at the same time. From my last experience in the swamp, I learned that when you hear nothing, when nothing moved, you could be sure that those moments were followed by a loud animal sound. One caught by another, an alligator snatching a blue heron, a cougar pouncing a raccoon, a water moccasin swallowing an entire nest of baby birds. Then, just as quickly, silence returned. I didn't want to be a predator's next meal. I looked around for something I could use to slice through the ropes around my wrist. All the trees were covered in soggy moss, their bark soft and crumbly. There were no sharp rocks in the swamp. A soft breeze moved the canopy above, and a lone sun ray reflected off an object a few feet away. I scooched over. In a clearing, I saw what I thought was a trash heap. It turned out to be an old campsite. Lying near the remainder of the campfire was a rusty tin can, the lid sticking up, still attached. I kicked it over and black water spilled out. When was the last time I had a tetanus shot? Not important now. I maneuvered the can into my hands. Within minutes, my palms were scratched and bloody, but free of ropes. The footprints the men left led me to a muddy road, little more than a wooded trail covered in tree roots. Thick mats of water hyacinth grew over a creek and reminded me that one false step would have me hip deep in water. I understood why they decided to bury my body out here. No sane person would be caught dead in this creepy environment. Truthfully, I didn't know why they even planned to bury me. My body would be devoured in days and the rest decomposed soon after. The main road came into view. Tired tracks led me in the right direction. 10 minutes into my track, I spotted a curious object lying in a shallow puddle, a shovel, a new shovel, rust-free shovel. I fished it out. It must have been the one Berger used to dig my grave. If there were any fingerprints left on it, the water probably took care of that. I brought it with me anyway. Having another weapon never hurt. Soon I found my way to a shack. The sign out front said, "Gully's Bait Shop." My clothes stained with mud and blood, and me looking like a deranged nutria, I walked in. The guy behind the counter seemed unfazed by my appearance and the shovel in my hand. He was sitting at a counter peeling a pile of boiled shrimp. "Are you Gully?" "Yep, that's me." "Well, Gully, that's exactly what I've been doing, skinning a hog. Can I use your phone?" "Got night crawlers, crawdads, minnows, but no phone." "How far is it to the city?" "Ain't no city here." "New Orleans." About 7 miles." He popped a shrimp into his mouth. "I'm happy to pay you if you give me a ride." "Ain't got no car." "Riley out back has got one." I heard jaunty Zydeco music coming from behind a back screen door. I stepped out. A guy who looked to be older than Moses was sitting on a wooden bench with his feet propped up on the porch railing. He was playing an accordion. Another guy was thumbing the washboard, and a third was burning up a fiddle. These guys were good. It was hard to keep my hips from swaying. The necks of beer bottles poked out from a ice tub filled with ice. If I wasn't involved in a murder investigation and time wasn't of the essence, I'd grab a cold one and stay a while. Which one of you is Riley? The accordion player nodded. I didn't bother explaining my presence. It didn't seem to matter. I need to get back to New Orleans fast. Can you drive me there? I'll pay you. Nope. They started up another tune. I had to sit down to keep from dancing. Please, it's important. Riley smiles. Can't. Why? Gully said you had a car. I do, but ain't got no gas. I consider my options. I could walk back. Even in bare feet, I could probably make it in under 3 hours. I thought about hitchhiking, but I hadn't seen a car come by on this road. And who would dare get into a car with anyone? And who would dare get into a car with anyone who stopped to pick up someone looking like me? I could take you in my Piero, he said. That's when I noticed a creek running behind the bait shop. How long would that take? Be there before the sun go down. I didn't have the entire day to waste in a Piero floating down a swamp with a Cajun at the helm. That won't do. It's pleasant out on Honey Creek. We'd have a good time, right? Right, pleasant. Bo on the washboard guy said, I no longer wanted to dance. I wanted to take my shovel and swat all 3 of these men upside the head. Wait, did you say Honey Creek? Yep, that'd be it behind me. You don't happen to know a guy named Lucien Thibault? He looks like a bear. Oh, Lucien? Yeah, we know him, said Riley. I think he's dead, the fiddle player said. He was alive a couple of weeks ago when I saw him, I said. Lucien Thibault was a guy Rip and I ran into when we were here chasing a crazy woman who knocked off a coyote, a couple of people in San Antonio. Lucien lived on a shanty and ate rotten squirrel stew, but otherwise he was harmless. The best thing was that he had a pickup. I'll take the chance he's still alive. How far away is the shanty? 5-minute float, Riley replied. Let's go, I said. Now. Gully was standing at the door listening. The 4 of us climbed into Riley's Piero. Instruments, beer tub, and all. In fact, the music never stopped. Gully climbed in too. With him using an oar and me using my shovel, we paddled and took off. Shortly after, I detected a pungent odor, squirrel stew, and knew we were close. We rounded a bend. There was Lucien sitting on the porch. It looked as if he hadn't moved since the last time I saw him. Lucien squinted when he saw us, and then his face lit up. Sydney! He jumped up. Riley threw him a rope, and Lucien tied us to his houseboat. Glad to see you, gal. Good to see you too, Lucien. I didn't think you'd remember me. Of course I do. Anyone who gave me an entire beer truck full of beer is hard to forget. I know you'd come back to see old Lucien. You did? Yep, been waiting. Let me give you a hand. He plucked me out of the Piero and set me down on the porch. Lucien's hug came close to crushing my ribs. The shanty started vibrating and swaying. I looked up to see a big guy come out from inside. He was wearing overalls like Lucien. His beard was heavy and he smelled like a monkey. Rip? Sydney, I can't believe it. Lucien kept telling me you were coming. How did you know, Lucien? I read them in the bones I throw. They told me that you was coming, Lucien said. I didn't believe him, Rip said. I can guess you're here hiding out, but why? Long story, Sid. I needed to hear Rip's story, but I had to get a move on.
Nicely done. I had a little problem with my microphone there for a minute.
Okay.
Nicely done. That sounds like a really exciting book. How much time did you spend actually in the swamp?
Probably an hour.
Wow. Okay.
This time around. Yeah.
So what was your favorite part about writing this story?
Just being in New Orleans and doing my research and just getting to know the city. I love the city. It's so unique and it's got a certain mystique. And I tried to include as much of New Orleans in the book as I could. I've included the voodooism.
Mm-hmm.
So there's several scenes that take place in the House of Voodoo, which has been in New Orleans for decades. And then there's scenes that take place in the French Quarter and Pat O'Brien's bar. And then I bring in Cafe Du Monde and the Garden District. So it's like a tour through New Orleans with a sidetrack to the swamp.
That's really fun. So this is the 6th book for Sydney. What's over the course of 6 books, what part of Sydney's character has now come to light for you that you didn't know about in book 1?
Her life has changed and developed, which I'm glad, because I like my books to seem realistic, and she's young and she's naive and she makes decisions that don't always work out. So there is a change in her life. She starts off as a reporter, and in the first book, and that's where she meets Dixon. There's a body found in her hotel room. Mm-hmm. She is a suspect, and then she has to prove her innocence. But she has gained a lot of confidence in herself after solving a few mysteries and realizing that Dixon was not going to go away. They decided to open up their own detective agency.
Excellent. So there's been an arc of maturity that's happened for her over the course of these 6 books then.
Yes, and she's a lot more courageous than she used to be. She always felt like she could do just about anything, but then there was always that doubt underneath, being a young woman in the 50s and, like wondering how she can maintain a career. She didn't want a family. She didn't want that domestic life, but at the same time, she meets a guy, she falls in love. So she's got to keep that balance there.
Right. And in the 1950s, the accessibility for women to do different things was very limited back then. So it's a different era. It's a different way to approach it. I hope, since we jumped in the middle of this series, I hope you'll come back and read the books in the beginning of the series for us on future episodes. I think that would be fun, so that we can tie all these pieces together and really learn how the story progresses.
I would love to.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today, and we'll look for you on the next episode.
Okay, sounds good.